Hey y'all, I am James Roy, and this is my lovely wife Courtney.
Danielle,
Courtney
since we're
Danielle,
going by our first and middle
since we're doing
names.
middle names. And this is the Noise Date Night Edition, a show where we talk about our weekly date nights, where we
Mm-hmm.
go and watch movies.
Yeah.
So get ready to hear a pretty riveting opinion on a movie that we watched, which this week is Dune. We watched Dune. Interesting stuff going on in that movie. Before we
Mm-hmm.
get into Dune too deep, we're gonna talk about our week because that's our thing. Small talk. That's what we do. The biggest small
We
talk you've
just
ever
have
heard.
interesting lives, and we know you want to hear about them.
That or they're uninteresting, and we're just gonna
And they're
force
just
you.
like hitting that 15-second forward mark. You know what I'm saying?
So we've determined since you've come here for the movie review, we might as well regale you with our week. Let's do it. All right. So on Saturday, we went to Escondido, got brunch. It was
Yep.
awesome. That was good stuff. It was a
It's-
solid place.
It was pretty good. Home Sweet Home Cafe.
Yeah, it was homey,
I would say
homely.
that the biscuits and gravy was really good.
I
And their
thought
sausage was bomb. And their potatoes were like perfectly crisp.
the sausage is the only thing we have in common, and I agree. The French toast, honestly, it's the first time I've seen a place actually like in a while use cinnamon and sugar and all that.
Mm-hmm.
They like asked me cinnamon, sugar, and butter, and I was like, all of that, yes. I would
Mm-hmm.
love all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So a solid meal, I think. I thought it was good.
So
Highly
for our food
recommend.
review podcast, I would give that a solid, since we're rating it out of 8.
Out of 7.
8 for the food.
It's 8 for the food. Okay.
Just kidding.
Tune in
I
on
would say it was like a
Wednesdays.
solid 6. I would have liked them to serve my biscuits and gravy on a separate plate and not on top of my potatoes.
Yeah, I actually
That
have
was
the
my
opposite.
qualm.
I have the
about that.
opposite thing where like it's the only place also where I've seen them serve the eggs on the same plate as the French
Mhm.
toast, and I always like that because I want to use the egg yolk on the French toast.
Oh, so you liked it?
So I thought it was great
Oh,
that they served it all on
interesting.
the same plate.
Okay.
I thought it was awesome.
I will say their coffee was subpar. It was not great.
A woman at my mom's calling, son, you never used to like to have all your food touch on the same plate. Mom, I've changed. I'm 26. My goodness.
Wow, it must be that wife of yours.
But
Shout out to Mama Ramirez.
Shout out. But yeah, no, it was solid breakfast. Brunch, if you will. It was noon. It was basically lunch.
We have a lot of opinions about food, if you haven't noticed.
Maybe we'll start a food review podcast. Legit.
I kind of make fun of us on my Instagram highlights and make it seem like we're legitimately doing food reviews.
She makes me seem like an honest food critic when really
Mm.
I'm just a picky eater.
Really, we just order the same thing everywhere we go, and we just see if we like it or not.
For me, it's the French toast.
For me,
But
it's like eggs and then some type of carb with it.
true.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, this weekend we celebrated our brother-in-law's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
George leveled up
He leveled up to
to
29.
level 29.
Happy birthday, George.
Happy birthday, George. Still waiting on that gift to come in the mail, I promise.
Well, by the time this is released, it will be in the mail.
It might be here.
Like
Who
at our
knows?
doorstep. Who knows?
We'll see.
That's what happens when you order it from China.
It's not from China.
Okay. Must be.
If it was from
It
China,
must be stuck outside on the Pacific.
if it was from China, it'd get here on his next birthday.
We
Be
could
like,
probably drive out to Long Beach and see if it's in a cart.
happy 29th. I mean 30th.
He's 29.
It was also our pastor's appreciation lunch at church.
Yes.
So we appreciated the pastors
We appreciate our pastors.
for all they do.
If you don't go to church and have a pastor, you need to do that.
You should do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Get some. You need Jesus. Get some Jesus.
Get yourself in church.
But with that, I guess we'll go ahead and start talking about the movie we watched this week.
Mm-hmm.
This week we watched Dune, a blockbuster sci-fi thriller, starring Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, Jason Momoa, Oscar Isaac, and Dave Bautista. I'll tell you, the star power is there. The screen time for the star power is varying in a lot of degrees. Now, someone you may or may not know, I honestly don't know to what degree her acting is known, but Rebecca Ferguson is our connection to a previous movie this week. She was in Reminiscence. She played the love interest of Hugh Jackman. So there's our tie back
Just in case you
every
ever went and
week.
saw that.
Throwback Thursday, if you will. Since
TBT.
we release on Thursdays,
Mm,
I gotta hit him with a throwback.
yeah.
But the director is
As we
Dennis
reminisce.
Villeneuve. I
Villeneuve, probably.
I've butchered that so hard. He also did Arrival. That was one of his most major contributions to film. Solid movie, I thought. Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner in that one. That was
It was nominated for Best Picture of the Year for an Oscar.
it's an awesome movie. I thought
I really liked it. He also did Prisoners with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal.
another connection.
Loved that movie.
And then the box office is for 147 million as of filming. Now that's to say, if I remember the numbers right before the movie released, based on its festival circuit debut, it had grossed about 117 million already. So opening weekend, not amazing. It's not as good as Halloween Kills did last weekend. But
I think it was released on HBO Max, maybe.
yeah, the HBO Max release was killing it. I was talking to a coworker earlier, and he said point blank, this is like my one person survey where I was like, if this show wasn't on HBO, because he watched it on HBO Max, I said, if it wasn't on HBO Max, would you have gone to the theater to see it?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, hindsight being 2020, he would have gone to the theater to see it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm firmly against a hybrid release. I feel like a 45-day cinematic release is minimum. We got to keep the cinemas alive.
I agree.
They're on life support if we keep this whole streaming thing up.
It's a lot easier to track like if people are genuinely interested when they go to the movies as opposed to like their streaming service, because that data is often like shown later on
Exactly.
and
No,
throughout
yeah.
time, like so much more time to see if people are interested in it.
No, I agree. But I guess at this point we should go ahead and issue our spoiler alert because we're gonna get a little deeper into this movie. Um, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I didn't think it was like the very best thing I'd ever seen. It certainly carried a lot by its star power.
I don't think it's going to be nominated for best picture, but it's a good series 1 type movie, if you will.
If you were looking for like a Star Wars or like a movie that is a part of a series but stands alone as like, you know, the in terms of the plot,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't that movie.
Yeah, you definitely like are not that satisfied after seeing it.
And I talked to everyone I talked to had the same qualm with the movie, which is that when you step through the plot, if I was to explain the plot to you, I would just start explaining the plot like this, and then I would just stop talking because that's how abruptly the movie just ended. Like I looked down at my watch and I was like, we're 2.5 hours in, and then I looked up at the screen and it was over, and I was like, that wasn't like a bad time to end it, but like I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, it was very much like, let's get the fellowship together to go hunt down, what
Yeah.
we need to do.
Well, so let me pull out. I got my
End
my
scene.
iPad right here.
Credits.
I've given myself a little bit of a script to go off of, so we don't, immerse ourselves too much in the plot. So, we'll set the scene right. We're at the home planet, or no, it goes a lot of places. We could start anywhere, but the House Atreides is at their home planet, and we're kind of setting the scene for like, Paul Atreides, played by Timothy Chalamet's background, and Oscar Isaac's still in charge of the house. Josh Brolin, a name we didn't mention earlier, who's in this movie, is one of the top military generals, and we're kind of getting a feel for House Atreides.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, to start, they do a brief background of the planet Arrakis
Mm-hmm.
and how I can't remember the name of the house that Dave Bautista is a part of, but it's the Draconin. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. They run that planet, and they get told to move off of it by the Imperial people. If you read, I'd recommend reading deeper into the lore of Dune. I feel like it makes it make more sense. So, if excuse me if I say some things that might not make sense in the frame of this podcast, but we'll see about it. Um, so they get kicked off, and House Atreides gets tapped with the duty of going to Arrakis. Arrakis is a spice place. They mine spice, which to the people of Arrakis is like a really important hallucinogen,
Mm-hmm.
and to the rest of the world, it's important to space travel because it opens your mind, and it's really people that take it are vital to traveling through space, plotting the course.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a look at the origins of, or a little bit deeper into the origins of how the people of Arrakis have been oppressed, and we get a look at House Atreides and their build up to like going there. There's this ominous undertone, like the Imperium is kind of against them,
Mm-hmm.
House Atreides, and so we get that vibe. And then they arrive at Arrakis. Okay, so we're given all this backstory, and we get to Arrakis. They kind of shows them setting up shop, typically like a bad turnover kind of thing, where they show up to the planet. The people they were supposed to take over for are already gone. The equipment's in disarray, and they've got to get spice mining back up. That's why they've been sent to the planet. And
Yeah.
so it shows like kind of this thing where you kind of start to feel for Oscar Isaac as like a good leader. In general, House Atreides is just kind of like good people, but they're obviously too powerful to exist within the system that they're in. Um, and we kind of get led down this path where one night all's quiet, and then suddenly they're under attack. We've been getting flashbacks to the Draconin, and they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of conspiring with the Imperium to take them out.
Mm-hmm.
And so this attack is all out. There's a negotiation. So Paul Atreides is like his mother, played by Rachel Ferguson,
Mm-hmm.
is like of a special bloodline. So there's like this negotiation to not kill her or the son.
Mm-hmm.
They just take him out into the desert, and they're like, if we leave him in the desert, they'll die anyway. Is their like underhanded way of avoiding violating their word. But we watch a lot of the major characters at this point die. Um, Oscar Isaac goes down. We everyone pretty much like Dave Bautista is one of those characters that doesn't get any screen time, but he manages to survive through all this. To this point, Zendaya's coming in and out in like 2 minute spurts every 15 minutes, where like
Yeah, just like a vision of her.
Paul is like, "Oh my gosh, I had a dream about you." Oh my gosh, I'm like, "Okay, Timothy, calm down. It's cool. You and 95% of men in America. Okay, let's move on from it."
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
okay. So they get exiled. They manage to get out. We find that so Jason Momoa plays Paul's brother in House Atreides, and he's the only one that manages to escape and survive past that point. So now House Atreides has fallen.
That's their brothers?
They're brothers, or like
No, they're not.
yeah, I believe they're related.
No.
You'd have to look into it.
I don't think they're related. I
They're-
think it's just he's his trainer, so he's really close to him.
I could have
'Cause
swore
then
it was
he would be the heir.
I could have swore in the credits it says that his last name is Atreides, which would mean that he's at least related to him. But look at Jason Momoa's character. Is it Atreides?
No, it's Duncan, Idaho.
Oh, okay. Then I was wrong there. I'll take that. They have a really close relationship, and Jason Momoa's character Duncan Idaho is the strongest fighter. It makes sense that he made it out. So House Atreides has fallen. Me and Courtney both agreed that it. And I think this is how the previous renditions of this movie have been done, specifically the 1984 variant of this movie. We both agreed that if they had just started at House Atreides falling and kind of followed Paul on his journey away from that, they could have fit it all in one movie.
Yeah, maybe had some flashbacks
Maybe
to
had
establish his relationship with his father and just kind of him trying to fill his shoes.
But I think that may have been the flaw with the previous movies, is what a lot of people have said in reviews, and which is why this one's done well. But once again, when you include all this backstory, we're about an hour into the movie already. We've occupied half, if not a little over half, of the runtime telling this story.
Mm-hmm.
And so now,
like not telling a story, but just setting the
just
background.
kind of setting the background for the
setting
story
the
that's to
scene,
be told.
Establishing this whole different world.
And so we step deeper into it. Paul and his mother, and accompanied by Duncan Idaho, kind of fly out, and they find these Dremen. I can't remember the name. Fremen, the people of Arrakis who are oppressed. Right. So at this point, I've kind of undermined their importance to this, but they've been there. It's just kind of like
they're like natives to the land.
It was the goal of the House Atreides to form a pact with them to dominate the desert, so that they could prevent what ended up ultimately happening to them, which was getting attacked and wiped out. So they eventually come across some Fremen, and all this time they've been kind of murmuring about how Paul is like the chosen one,
Mm-hmm.
which feeds into the mirrors between this like the book and Islam, where
Mm-hmm.
like he's kind of this like figure that's been hyped up by people above to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of speaking it into existence, his mother and her people. And so these people legitimately believe that Paul's like destined to be like the guy, like a
Yeah, to
big
kind of
player.
like save them and restore their country to like what it is or where they're going. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and so we get to watch the pursuit of the House Draken, I can't remember their name anymore. Dave Bautista and his people are pursuing
Who
Paul,
have now become the villains, the Imperial
and we watch everyone kind of sacrifice themselves to get them
Imperial
out of
Army.
there. They get a touching moment where Jason Momoa's character
Is
Duncan
that Star
Idaho
Wars?
fights off like six of them,
Mm-hmm.
six of the Imperial troopers to try and give him some time. Imperial troopers, I don't Imperium people, who knows? The parallels between this and Star Wars are
It's
there,
so similar.
but
Yeah.
I would say it runs more like an early Lord of the Rings movie in terms
Oh
of the
yeah.
way the plot's written.
It's
Because,
total Fellowship of the Ring status.
but
Meets
so
Star Wars.
so um they pursue them deep into this cavern. They manage to fly out, and there's a sandstorm. They get caught up in it, and Dave Bautista reports back, "Hey, there's no way they survived. They're dead." They they work their way through the desert. Paul and his mother, the last two
Mm-hmm.
standing from all these people. Once again, every major actor that you know in this movie is probably dead at this point, except
Besides
for
Zendaya.
except for Zendaya. She might as well be dead. You hadn't seen her in real life.
Yes, you don't really know if she exists at this point.
So they were working their way through the desert, and they run into a Fremen group of people, and they're like, the only reason they got there is the Fremen people set off this thumper to scare off the worm that was pursuing them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the only reason they even survived. And they're like, yo, we need to kill these people. They've got precious water in their body. Fremen people will like spit at you in a good way, because like sharing the moisture of their bodies like considered a warm gesture.
Well, they're in the desert, so naturally,
No, yeah,
like water is
exactly.
a scarce resource.
And so they're all about like we should kill them and use the water from their body to like keep us. That's what we deserve. We
Mm-hmm.
cornered them. Eventually they kind of work out that they're going to bring him back to the tribe and see if they can initiate him, because again, people in this group are like, dude, this Paul is the one. He's the dude. We got to bring him back to the people.
And we know he's the dude because he knew how to put on the suit without.
He knew how to put on his suit without any help. How did you know that?
The one will know
You'd
our
have
ways.
to be a natural born Fremen. So
We didn't
one,
hate the movie. We're just
one
making
guy
fun of it.
one guy's adamantly against him coming along, Paul, and so he challenges, or he doesn't like Paul's mom, so he challenges her to like a duel to the death kind of thing. But they're like, well, she can't do it. She's a woman. She needs like a champion. It's a very like I don't know how to put it. Very old school kind of thought process going on.
Considering we just saw the last duel, yes, I agree.
Yeah. So Paul fights him. It's a pretty even fight, and Paul ends up winning. Paul's initially like trying to get him to surrender, and they're like, "No, dude, that's not how this works. One of you has to die because you entered this battle, and
Yeah.
tradition dictates somebody dies here." And so he kills the dude, and the dude was a guy that he saw in his visions that he's seeing throughout the movie. Him and Zendaya were two vital characters that guided his steps to get to this point. There was a lot to be said for them. So it was surprising that he had to kill the one dude, but at the same time it wasn't. I don't know. The visions like had a lot of, it was a lot of subliminal stuff that like
maybe like if you read the books you might know more about the visions, but to me continuity in the visions were a little sketch.
I was like knives, blood. I don't know what's going on
It
here.
was interesting.
He eventually meets Zendaya's character,
Mm-hmm.
and for the next 5 minutes we get to see Zendaya, and then the movie ends. So like he beats the guy, kills him, and then him and Zendaya talk, and then they kind of go, "We're gonna go back to the people, and we're gonna bring you with us.
Come on, let's go."
And then she
Follow
turns
me.
back and looks at him like with the all blue eyes, because that's what spice does to your eyes.
Mm.
And she's like, and like looks back at him like,
You know, like that famous Instagram
And then-
shot of the
and then
girls
I-
reaching back for their
and then I
SOs.
blinked, and the movie was over. So it was a very abrupt end. I don't know. I feel like this review is gonna be short, and it's not because the movie wasn't good.
plot is very short.
The plot's just short because this whole movie was meant to set up the second one. And you'll see at the beginning when it opens, you have the thing where it says Dune, and under it says Part
Part
1.
one.
And Courtney didn't catch that at first.
No, I did.
I thought you said you didn't.
I said part 1.
Oh no,
I knew
you're the
exactly.
one who pointed. No, you're the
I
one
knew
who pointed
exactly
No,
when
no,
they
that
were
was-
gonna end. When they were walking on their journey, I was like, "Watch, this is where they're gonna end." And then James goes, "Wait, it just ended." And I said, "Yeah, because this is how it ends in Lord of the Rings, the first movie."
No, that was someone else. Someone else at work was talking to me, and they were like, "That was like a lame movie. There's no point to it." And I was like,
It's
Well,
just part 1.
"It's Part 1." And they went, "What?" And I said, "Yeah." And it literally said Part 1 at the beginning, and they were like, "No way."
To be fair, it looked like it was 0.8 font, and it was like that really thin font that they used for the title. So I get it.
But yeah, that's pretty much the whole plot. I mean, I feel like the major actors did well. My biggest issue, right, is that all that build up for I guess my expectations were toned toward it, so I wasn't like disappointed. But I thought that Oscar Isaac's character, the head of House Atreides, was really good. I thought he displayed like a lot of likable characteristics, and if they had had more time to build his character and I was more attached to him, I probably would have been a little more frustrated that he died. But like I was just
Yeah.
kind of like, I've seen him for 15 minutes.
I think that whole story of like, in order for the son to take place in his throne, like, you have Lion King, same thing. Like, the dad has to die in order for the son to fulfill their calling. Like, there's that whole like royalty aspect of that and the
Yeah, well,
succession.
What's interesting is
So I feel like you knew it was coming, but it did fall flat because you're like, man, I really liked him and I wanted to see more of him because he seemed like such a cool dad and a good leader, and he was well respected, and then he just died
what's interesting is that
an hour and a half into the movie.
Timothy Chalamet's character, right, Paul, he kind of plays into the tropes of like being this. There's that scene from the preview where he's like, "What if I don't take over for you, Dad?" And he's like, "If you don't ever become the head of House Atreides, you'll always be what I needed you to be, which was my son."
Like,
which
that
is,
would have
like-
been a great flashback. As
That would have
his
been a great
dad is,
flashback,
like,
yeah.
dying and maybe at like a funeral or some
But-
type of memorial scene.
What's interesting is that he seems so dissociated with the idea of even really caring about taking over. There's points where he shows flashes of it, and then there's like one scene where like his dad's dead, or his dad's not quite dead yet. I don't remember when this happens, but he kind of has a flashback, and then he like comes out of it, and he like starts having a fit, and he's just kind of like, they're gonna use my dad's house's name as a figurehead to start some sort of movement to overthrow the Imperium, and he's like really genuinely mad about it. And I was like, dude, 5 seconds ago you didn't care if you took over for your dad,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
now you're like really into it. I don't really get
I was
it.
a little confused by his character because you can tell like he had some inner struggle, but at the same time he didn't have any emotional connection with really anybody, and he was also had a lot of questions about like his own background. Whereas like I felt like the way that they portrayed it, he just kind of seemed like a spoiled, lost puppy.
And he played into a lot of like. That's why I honestly thought Jason Momoa's character was one of the sons, because he seemed like the typical like, like the Jacob and Esau kind of thing going, where like Esau's stronger, but like Jacob like is gonna get that birthright.
Yeah, no, because he like made fun of him for like being skinny.
Exactly. So I was like,
Yeah.
obviously he's Esau, but I don't.
I see
know.
that connection. Yeah.
But now
Like,
that
he's
now
the
that I know that,
fighter.
it's kind of like he's just kind of like a loyal, faithful person to the family.
Yeah.
But
That's funny that you didn't get that like
I-
initially.
I liked how grounded his character was, Jason Momoa.
Oh,
where
I
he's like,
loved his
he's
character.
like, dreams don't mean anything. Everything
Mhm.
everything that's real happens in
He
here in
had
real
like
life.
awesome fight scenes too, so that kind of redeemed
Well, and that was the other
the
thing
rest
too,
of
is
it.
it was one of those things where like every time he talked, he had the highest of praise for the person he just beat. He's like, I could tell he was an Imperium fighter because when you meet an Imperium fighter, you come close to the brink of death. Or like
He was like so profound.
he's like saying all these profound like compliments to guys that he literally just killed. And I'm
I would
just
say
like,
he's like what character would you compare him to in the Star Wars universe?
If I was to find a comparison,
Like the Obi-Wan or
Obi-Wan, I guess. I mean, he's a combination, like kind of like an Obi-Wan.
mm-hmm.
He's a bit on the wild. He's interested in exploring. I put him as like one of those like I'm good and I know it kind of guys, kind of like Han Solo.
Yeah.
He kind of fits a lot of bills. It's hard to put him into one character.
Oh, okay.
but I think his character is really good, and it's also another character that I think it's a shame he didn't get. He got a lot of screen time right before he died.
I
It
know.
was like as soon as he came
I
on the
was like,
screen a lot, I
maybe
was like,
they'll have him survive and be in the second one. Nope.
no, and it's foreshadowed pretty hardcore when Paul goes, "I saw you in a room,
And you were
and
dying.
you were dead,"
Yeah.
and he's like that, and he's like, "That's not gonna happen. I'm too good at this."
And then he locks himself in this room.
Like, this is the moment. It's like
and he dies.
imagine if Paul had looked at him and gone, "One." It's like there was 4 million different outcomes that could happen. Like Doctor Strange and
Yeah, I was
Tony
like,
Stark.
did you just go
Like Doctor Strange, but instead he's like, "No,
Yeah.
open the door."
He seemed so feeble. Poor thing. But apparently he was really good at fighting because he won.
No, yeah, apparently
Um,
I was not surprised because they implied it at several points,
I
but
think the best part though for me was like all the gadgets and like
Yeah,
just the
and
cool little like
speaking of reading into the
special
history,
effects, things like that was
the
really cool.
gadgets were cool, but what you have to understand about this society is that it occurs. It's about 20,000 years into the future from us,
Mhm.
and so in that time span in between, there's been the rise of technology and the fall of it, which is
Yeah.
that at one point they had a artificial intelligence that ran things, and technology, as has been predicted by a lot of books in our society, took what became more powerful than humans, and there was a whole resistance, and humans ended up taking down technology.
Mhm.
And so you'll notice that at any point possible, humans tend to remove AI from they'll use technology, but not AI
Are you
related
talking about the
technology.
movie or just in general?
The movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in that universe, technology is good as long as it doesn't feature any intelligence that's higher.
Mhm.
So an interesting bit that I
Mm.
read an article or two about the
Okay.
lore of Dune.
I was like, I don't think that was really like established in the movie.
It wasn't. It's something
but
that
it
you
does
have to
make
read
sense.
into.
It makes sense.
But
Because like those like electromagnetic shields that they have around their bodies.
that was cool. That was cool tech.
Yeah, no, that was cool. I
It was
liked
interesting
that.
that it literally will only give if you like get a kill shot. Like literally, it's just
I
like
know.
if you stab at someone, it'll go right through. But if you like hit them regular with the blade, it's like not gonna do anything. I didn't really get it.
I don't get that either.
The usefulness of they treated it like it was like life or death, but it was like, dude, if that dude's a better fighter than you, he's gonna kill you.
Yeah, he's gonna win. And well, that's what we saw. They all pretty much died.
But yeah, I
So Dune
overall-
Part 2, really, the only ones slated are Rebecca Ferguson, Timothée Chalamet, and Zendaya.
pretty much.
That's it.
Well, Dave Bautista.
And Dave Bautista. Yeah, he
But-
survived.
I think actually, so the head of the house that Dave Bautista is a part of is played by Nicholas Skarsgård. I can't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Thor: Dark World, Thor, the original one, and he's in the original Avengers. He plays the dude that's like taken over by the Infinity Stone. He
Mhm.
does the bidding of Loki.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in there. He's in a lot of bodysuit makeup, and I saw him on the list of like
Mhm.
people, but I didn't know which one he was until like I really thought about it.
I knew who he was.
Yeah, no, I didn't think
He
I
has
didn't.
such a distinct face.
Oh. But on that note, before we get into ratings,
Mm-hmm.
let's do our weekly bit, and we'll call it Negative Nancy.
Oh, the negative Nancy's
The Negative
of the world.
Nancy's.
I'm sure this one's gonna be
And
like
so,
a doozy.
of course,
But
and so as you all, for those of you who are new, every week we read the 1-star reviews because who hasn't gone to search for a product and been like, what's everyone saying that's the worst about it? Just to see if the reviews are so bad at the bottom that you wouldn't buy it. And so that's what we're doing right now after the fact. A little buyer's remorse maybe, depending on how the reviews go. But also, people who have negative thoughts tend to be so creative when they express it. So let's hear it. What do we got?
nothing. That's literally the title of one of their reviews. Unwatchable. Pretentious and wrong. Not the book. Well, we didn't read the book, so we can't really compare.
Yeah.
This is like a boring episode of a random TV show. Hans Zimmer music was erased by the sandstorm. Okay. Slow spaced space drama part 1. Slow burn, my dudes. Please watch the original. Hideous so far. Script sounds... I don't even know what that word is. Another unacceptable remake. Fool me once, shame on you. The longest TV episode ever. It did feel like kind of like a TV show.
It did, yeah.
I agree with that. How not to cast.
I thought the cast was the
Atrocious plot
strongest
changes,
part.
dull and pointless. There was plot changes, plot twists.
I don't know.
I felt like Timothy Chalamet's visions, Paul's visions, kind of just set it up for us, so we knew it was happening.
I vaguely remember
You know?
seeing Dune the 1984 edition, and all I remember was Sting hissing at people like.
What?
That was like all I remember of that movie is Sting just being like weird.
Oh, was singing it.
Sting was in it, and he was weird.
Dune, more like dung. Rather watch the 1984 Dune. Boring has a whole new name. Can't see a thing. Horribly boring. Why the high reviews? Very boring.
That's the key term here is boring.
Did I watch a different film than everybody else? OMG, not the book. Well, I could tell you, like, film adaptations are never the book. That's
Never
why
the
you
book,
have
no.
to, like, write a compare and contrast essay on that in, like, high school,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
just us? Okay. Yeah, it's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah.
Another worthless, pretentious remake. Painfully slow and relies on the visuals to get through. Michael
that
Bay
one's mostly true.
and Dennis have something in common.
It's
If
all
you don't know who Michael Bay
explosions.
is, he's the one that does all the Transformer movies.
And it's just all
Wah, wah.
explosions, no
Mhm.
plot. But this one had more of a plot than a Transformers movie.
The director was trying to be clever. He failed.
Well, on that note, what do we have for like
Anyone who likes this is after anyone who likes this is after a Star Wars movie. This totally misses the point.
Well, I mean, it mirrors Star Wars very much in the kind of space western style.
I've only seen like a few Star Wars movies, and I definitely was like, this is so Star Wars right now. Also, Fellowship of the Ring, you guys. Remember when we watched Fellowship of the Ring? You didn't watch it, but I did, and it was one of those things where I was like, I want to know what happens next. But that movie was like 3 hours, and it was so long, and I'm not sure what we accomplished. But I want to see the next one.
Well, to be fair, I was probably about between 7 and 10 years old, and my parents put it on around like 7 or 8 at night and put me in bed. So like I was primed to go to sleep, and the movie was on. And I fell asleep before they even left the village. It's just,
That's what happened with Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember there being a party and what's his face being
Bilbo.
like, would you come with me on this adventure?
Oh, Gandalf.
Gandalf was like, hey, can we come with me?
More like, would you accompany me to this adventure?
And then I was like,
oh my gosh, but the Shire.
But the Shire.
Everything was so pretty. Boring and never-ending movie, like a never-ending desert.
A never-ending story.
Also a great movie.
But no, what are the good things they're saying? Because the reviews are pretty solid. Metacritic is up there.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, people really like it. Like, the beginning, like, people understand that this is an installment in a series. So when you look at it as like, okay, this is a part one,
it sets all
it's
the
a
money
little bit
on-
more forgiving because you have to understand that this is like a new world that we're not familiar with unless you've read the book or unless you watch the movie.
Yeah.
And so they need to kind of break down just the laws of the society per se.
Yeah, they definitely did a good job of setting it up.
Yes. Like I watched it and I didn't have to ask James one thing to explain, which, not gonna lie, in the last Star Wars movie, I had him explain like everything.
Babe, why is he called Kylo Ren?
Okay. Well,
babe, are they in love?
is that Adam Driver? Are they going to fall in love? Oh, so this is not like Anakin. Is Anakin alive still?
The difference is she asked me in the middle of the movie, and I said that's not possible, and then I was proven wrong at the end of the movie.
I called it. Well, I can also catch those things, but yeah, people give it like a strong 8, a strong 10. Majority of them, it's at an average of like an 8.3, which is pretty high for user ratings.
And that's on
considering out of it a
IMDb?
10. For IMDb viewers, which is pretty much the most popular app that people use. The Metascore is at a 75, which is a green. So majority of the critics liked it. IndieWire doesn't like anything, so they gave it a 42. It said it was all too right. Your television isn't big enough for the scope of his Dune. But that's only because This lifeless spice opera is told on such a comically massive scale that a screen of any size would struggle to contain it. I do feel like it was a massive setting that was hard to conceptualize into a small screen in a small time, which is why I get why they took an hour and a half to establish everything.
Yeah, I still don't feel like
But
I
it was a
understood
lot.
the scope of the universe.
I don't, yeah, I feel exactly. I still don't feel I understand the scope of the universe. I don't understand because they're planets, I guess, which is kind of like a Star Wars thing, right? They're all like different planets.
Yeah.
But then one planet is strictly water and like lush greens, which is where like they're from.
And then they moved to the desert.
And then one planet is just desert, so it's like the 4 regions of California.
I was
don't
gonna
know.
say, yeah.
Is
it's
one
like,
planet like Antarctica?
we moved from NorCal to SoCal because we heard that it was nice.
We moved from NorCal
But
to
they, like-
SoCal because
But they like moved to like Riverside or like the desert. They were like, this isn't what we thought SoCal was because we
then
saw
they post on Instagram like we live in SoCal.
we live in L.A.
LA?
L.A.
Let's go down to LA.
We'll have brunch on Melrose in the winter because we can do that
In
in L.A.
LA.
But
All right.
what are our rating of the movie on a scale of 1 to 7? Because that's how we do.
I don't know. Visually, it was stunning. I think they'll get nominated for something visually. Cinematography, visual effects. The music was phenomenal. I loved the music. Hans Zimmer did an awesome job.
No, yeah, it was good stuff.
I would say, with all of that in mind, I just could never give like a Star Wars movie like a 7.
Yeah.
I could never even give a Star Wars movie like a 6.
Hmm.
So, with that in mind, I'm going to have to go with like a 5.5. I'm all about the half stars.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. That's I think at points in the movie I thought maybe this could be a 6, but the ending for me and the fact that it's not, I don't think it was really meant to be like a 7 movie.
No, that's what I mean.
It was just like a building block for.
Yeah.
Now, if Dune 2 isn't at least a 6.5, I would be pretty mad about it.
Like the last Star Wars movie was pretty good. Right?
That's controversial.
Was that the one we saw together?
The one we saw together, yeah.
Okay.
Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, like I would say that one's probably like received pretty well within the.
No.
Okay.
No, especially with the Rey and Kylo Ren kiss. That was just kind of like, okay,
Weird.
why?
Yeah.
Why
okay.
did we do that?
I don't know. I didn't really see the other one, so
the whole premise of the movie was weird.
bad
but
example.
But that's because the 7th movie, Return of the The Force Awakens was good and set a good baseline, and then 8 was just weird. It just took a wrong turn.
Okay, so bad analogy. So let's go back to Lord of the Rings because that's a trilogy, and this seems like it's possibly going to be a trilogy. I'm not too sure how the book works.
So our dear friend who's celebrating his birthday, George, has read the book.
Yeah.
And he told me that we're like a quarter of the way into the book right now, maybe a third.
Yeah, so they could make it a 3-part trilogy. I would say that's probably their best bet. If the second one does really well, they could probably crank out another one. With that being said, if you watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, hands down the best one is number 3.
Of course. No, that was the only one I saw.
Because it's so good. Yeah, it's just riveting from like beginning till end. Like everything ties up.
Quest
yeah,
to Mordor.
the battle scenes are just amazing, right? Return of the King. And then you have the second one. That's pretty good too. But it's better than the first one, right? So I feel like Dune's going to kind of line up that way too.
I stayed awake longer. That doesn't mean it was better.
It does. It was better.
I have to take your.
You
I
have
have
to
to trust
you
your
have
word.
like
I don't even have a view
more
on it.
screen time with Orlando Bloom, and you didn't like the trees helping them out. But you know what? Helping the hobbits. I loved the hobbits in those scenes and the trees. You just got to know them like I don't know for who they were.
You know what I liked
was
Third Breakfast. Third Breakfast is good because I'm a breakfast guy. Their meals are all named were like first and second breakfast, and then lunch, and then third lunch, and then fifth dinner, and I don't know. I don't know the actual terms. I've just heard like people talk about it that way.
Okay, babe.
But on that note, I guess we'll go ahead and get into what we're gonna watch next week.
All right.
Next week we'll be watching Last Night in Soho, a movie starring Anna Taylor-Joy, and Matt Smith who is my favorite of the actors that are in this, because he was Doctor Who. He's probably the best Doctor, although I can't decide between him and David Tennant. So
I never watched it.
I know you didn't, and that's why that was me nerding out for a second. Like, my other car is a TARDIS.
Oh, is that why you have that blue telephone booth?
What? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks like a solid movie. I'm pretty sure it just follows this girl goes to Soho to pursue her career in the arts, and is like seeing Anna Taylor Joy and Matt Smith's toxic relationship play out, and come to find out that like there's a murder and she's trying to solve it or something. I
It
don't know.
seems very Lovely Bones-esque.
It also seems very much like the kind of movie that I just told you what the plot was based on the preview, and I'll probably repeat the same words when we come to look at it.
I mean, it's not like a blockbuster hit.
It's the only movie coming out this week, so
That's playing at our local theater.
yeah.
Although The French Dispatch.
Yeah, no, that one sounds interesting. Bill Murray's in it.
There's a ton of people in it.
Wait, and Timothy Chalamet, which is weird that he has two movies coming out back to back. But
Is
anyway,
it?
whatever.
They probably filmed Dune like a long time ago, so
Probably.
it probably never even conflicted with each other.
I could imagine. But
The
last
amount
night,
of time that had to go into post for Dune.
but last night in Soho looks like a solid movie. I mean, I think it'll be good.
It's probably gonna be like a solid 4.
A solid 4.5,
Yeah.
5. What's the
Yeah.
the lowest we've rated one is Reminiscence, which was like a outside of Cry Macho, the infamous Cry Macho, which is a whole 5
Let us know
points.
you saw Cry Macho. We're really curious.
Cry Macho's like a whole 4.5 points down from the next worst movie, Reminiscence.
I think the last time we were trying to figure out how long Cry Macho actually was.
But so yeah, that's what we'll be watching this week. So go ahead and watch it so that you can tune into the podcast and not get any spoilers, or listen to the podcast anyway and let the movie be spoiled. Since we've condensed our plot reviews so much that you will just get our thoughts and feelings on the movie instead of too many spoilers. But still spoilers. I don't want to not like talk about the movie fully. I don't know. But on that note, this has been my lovely wife, Courtney.
Bye.
And I've been James Roy, and this has been The Noise Date Night. Like, comment, subscribe, or do whatever the people on your social media platform you're on right now tell you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you around. Please
Tune in next week.
keep watching, and we'll catch us next week.